Act. Noun. Something that somebody does. 1. Countable. A particular thing that somebody does. Examples. You have committed a serious criminal act. Act of something, an act of kindness. This was one of the most appalling acts of terror of recent times. Acts of terrorism, violence, aggression. They performed acts of great heroism. The murder was the act of a psychopath. Synonyms. Action, measure, step, act, move. These are all words for a thing that somebody does. Action, a thing that somebody does. Example. Can you explain your actions? Measure, an official action that is done in order to achieve a particular aim. Example. Tougher measures against racism are needed. Step. One of a series of things that you do in order to achieve something. Example. This was a first step towards a united Europe. Act. A thing that somebody does. Example. An act of kindness. Action or act. These two words have the same meaning but are used in different patterns. An act is usually followed by of and, or used with an adjective. Action is not usually used with of but is often used with his, her, etc. A heroic act of bravery, a heroic action of bravery, his heroic actions, acts during the war. Action often combines with take but act does not. We shall take whatever acts are necessary. Move. Used especially in the media, an action that you do or need to do to achieve something. Example. They are waiting for the results of the opinion polls before deciding their next move. Patterns. To take action, measures, steps. To make a step, move. A heroic, brave, daring action, step, act, move. See also, balancing act, speech act. Extra examples. For Jane, the act of writing was always difficult. He was arrested on suspicion of planning terrorist acts. The company says that the explosion was no accident but a deliberate act of sabotage. The very act of writing out your plan clarifies what you need to do. A heroic act of bravery. A private act of revenge. Charged with committing an act of gross indecency. Horrific acts of violence. Images of African Americans performing heroic acts. His heroic acts during the war. Law. 2. Act, countable. A law that has been passed by a parliament. Examples. An act of Congress, Parliament. The CARE Act 2014. To pass, repeal, amend an act. Under an act, a committee on safety of medicines was set up under the act. Extra examples. The Higher Education Act 1965. The old act has now been repealed. The new Children's Act will become law next year. The company had violated the Data Security Act of 2006. The company had breached the 1994 Companies Act. The act was passed by a majority of 175 votes to 143. The act contains regulations for banks and building societies. The 1995 Act applies only to food and not to dietary supplements. He was charged under the Firearms Act of 1977. Pretending. 3. Singular, a way of behaving that is not sincere but is intended to have a particular effect on others. Examples. Don't take her seriously, it's all an act. You could tell she was just putting on an act. In play, entertainment. 4. Countable, one of the main divisions of a play, an opera, etc. Examples. A play in 5 acts. The hero dies in Act 5, Scene 3. The king is killed in the opening act. 5. Countable, a performance, especially one of several short pieces of entertainment in a show. Examples. A circus, comedy, magic act. Her one-woman poetry act. See also, double act. Extra examples. He does a little novelty act. He does a little song and dance act. The club offers live music and cabaret acts. The children in the audience had come to see the magic act. The show includes clowns and other circus acts. I have to work on my act. 6. Countable, a performer or group of musicians. Example. They were one of rock's most impressive live acts. Extra examples. The group is merely a novelty act. Comedy double act French and Saunders. The main act will come on at about 10 o'clock. Word origin. Late Middle English. From Latin actus. Event. Thing done. Act. Done. From the verb agere. Reinforced by the French noun act. Idioms. Act of God. Law. An event caused by natural forces beyond human control, such as a storm, a flood or an earthquake. Get in on the act. Informal. To become involved in an activity that somebody else has started, especially to get something for yourself. Example. Other manufacturers are getting in on the act, creating their own versions of the popular toy. Clean up your act. Informal. To start behaving in a moral or responsible way. Example. He cleaned up his act and came off drugs. Do. Perform. Stage a disappearing, vanishing act. Informal. To go away or be impossible to find when people need or want you. Example. The cat had done a disappearing act. Get your act together. Informal. To organize yourself and your activities in a more effective way in order to achieve something. Example. He needs to get his act together if he's going to pass. A hard, tough act to follow. A person or event that is so good or successful at something that it will be difficult for anything else coming after them to be as good or successful. Examples. She has been an excellent principal and will be a hard act to follow. Their contribution will prove a tough act to follow. In the act of doing something. While you are doing something. Examples. He was caught in the act of stealing a car. It is often difficult to tell when someone is using drugs unless they are caught in the act. Read, somebody, the riot act. British English, to tell somebody with force that they must not do something.